Now we will finally go to the mock draft database simulator, and we are going to start the draft. We're going to start the Seahawks. I can't remember what if you. I don't think you can change the speed on this one, so I'm going to go normal so that we don't completely bog this down. Okay, so we're going to enter our draft room. Here we are with all of our beautiful picks, and we will start this one out. So one thing that I don't like is I would like to be able to go back up easily and see what other teams have picked. If there was a more obvious scroll bar on here, I think I can like drag it over. So in this case, the Titans took Shedeur Sanders first. That would be surprising. I mean, if they took Shedeur Sanders, you would have to assume the reason would be because they planned on. I don't think that Shedeur Sanders wants to play there. Unless that's part of the most recent comments that Dion has made about not caring where he goes, not wanting to intervene on where he goes because he wants him to get drafted 1 overall. But I mean, everything I've read and heard is that the league is not as high on him as they are on Cam Ward. So I don't think that's realistic, but I don't think it's completely unrealistic to see two quarterbacks in the first 3 picks. All right, get back to the Seahawks pick. So Kelvin Banks went already. They have Kenneth Grant ranked 22nd. They have Jihad Campbell is interesting to me, and I've had to have a little bit of a what would you say, like a revival? I've had to face my own biases on guys like Jihad Campbell and guys like Abdul Carter, the dude, I can't remember what the Javon Walker, that's not it. Jalen Walker from Georgia. These guys who are like off-ball linebackers converted into edge rushers. My bias comes from the Seahawks and Aaron Curry, where they were like, he could be either. He could be off-ball linebacker. I mean, at the time, we called it an off-ball or an outside linebacker. We called it a middle or an outside linebacker at the time. Now we've come up with new terms to make things more complicated. More descriptive, but also more complicated. Anyways, there's some thought that Jihad Campbell could play both those spots also. I'm inclined to take him there. He kind of solves 2 problems for you, which is you need a little bit of linebacker depth. You need a little bit of edge depth. He could move positions. If you think he's the kind of football guy that can move positions, like he can know enough of the game plan for both positions to kind of be able to bounce back and forth. But a guy that can be all over the field like that, I would assume if you're taking him in the first round, you view him a little bit more as an edge rusher. Oh, man. I'm going to take Jihad Campbell, and people are not going to like it, but I think if you take Jihad Campbell, you have him as a guy who's going to be primarily, not exclusively, but primarily an edge rusher and a guy who maybe moves over on specific downs and specific scenarios. Got a B+, starting out with a passing grade. I like Kenneth Grant a lot. If Kenneth Grant, I don't think he's going to fall. I mean, he doesn't fall to the Seahawks here. I certainly don't think he's going to fall to the Seahawks in the second round. He's a guy that would be like a very, very high priority for me. Now we're in a position where I like Ariante Ursery. I'm going to take Ariante Ursery, but I'm going to talk for a minute because if I could go back and do it all again, knowing that Landon Jackson, who's another guy that I have high on my list, a guy that's got great athletic traits, that's got great size and has versatility along the defensive line in this system. If I knew he was going to be available here, I probably wouldn't have taken Jihad Campbell because I would have wanted Landon Jackson. I would rather have had Landon Jackson and Kenneth Grant than Jihad Campbell and Ariante Ursery here, that's what I'm going to take. I might have even been able to get all 3 because Ursery might not go to Denver at 51 here. I like Ursery. I think he can move in to play guard. I think he can play tackle if Abraham Lucas isn't healthy and if Charles Cross is not in the Seahawks' future plans. So I'm taking Ursery. I've liked Ursery since before the draft process started. Man, Landon Jackson sticks again. I mean, it might just be on. Let's take a look at what how they have the quarterbacks ranked here. Because if if I'm the Seahawks, I'd be considering Quinn Ewers here. I'd be considering Jalen Milroe, frankly. Like if they like Milroe, I'd be considering him here because I think that he's a guy who could play some downs this year. Like I talked to Bryce Coots about, I think he's a guy that could play some downs this year. So I like Milroe. Man, just because they have him ranked 90, I think realistically, I don't think that Quinn Ewers is a lock to make it to 82. If he's still there at 82, I'm probably taking Quinn Ewers. But do I take Landon Jackson? If I'm just going best player available, which is probably what I should be doing, I'm taking Landon Jackson. I think one thing that does for you to take Jihad Campbell in the first round is it gives you the opportunity to evaluate Tyrese Knight without the bias of knowing you're probably going to have to play him for a bunch of downs this year. Okay. Man. So quarterback still on the board. Ewers goes. Where did Ewers go? That's upsetting. I will tell you that's upsetting to me. Ewers goes number 71 to New Orleans. So I've failed us because Ewers was like the last guy that I was really enthusiastic about as a quarterback. People like Will Howard. I'm not as high on Will Howard. I'm probably getting a little bit caught up in the run here. I'm going to get a good grade on this because he's ranked 67 on the mock draft database big board. I don't have him I wouldn't have him that high. I don't have a big board. I want you to know. In the way they have their quarterback rankings set up, I don't have him that high in the quarterback rankings. I don't have a 300-person big board. Sorry to tell you. I haven't been hiding that from you. I'm going to take Will Howard here because he's the next. I mean, I just am not enthusiastic about anyone until Curtis Rourke, and I'm worried about Rourke not being athletic enough to be successful in the modern NFL. So we're taking Will Howard. I get an A, but I'm not happy about it. It feels like an A that I cheated off someone else's paper, to be honest with you. So Tate Ratledge is still here. He's probably not going to be here at 92, but if he is, I think it's going to be really hard for the Seahawks not to pick him. Frankly, I'd be interested in Isaiah Bond, and I don't give a shit what any of you think about the Seahawks drafting another slot receiver. I think they're going to have receivers with this profile for a while. For as long as Clint Kubiak is here, I think that you're going to see this profile of us, not Isaiah Bond, by the way. Isaiah Bond is like kind of a all or nothing vertical threat, but a guy who profiles as that like small, short, shifty, whatever bullshit adjectives you want to use. Harold Fannin Jr. I would consider here, but I mean Tate Ratledge. I just can't pass up on Tate Ratledge at 92. And I get another A+. We're having, by the way, according to this, to Mock Draft Database, we're having just a banner draft. Maybe the best draft of any team. I mean, it's hard to imagine a team with 3 A+, an A, and a B+. Restrepo, by the way, he ends up going right there. Like I said earlier, my guess is Xavier Restrepo falls to like 5th or 6th round at the earliest. That's just an impossible 40 time to reconcile, I think. Reconcile. That's not revival. Reconcile. I think that's the word I was trying to think of earlier. Terrence Ferguson, a lot of people like. He's probably going to be my pick here. I like Jared Ivey also, despite not having and I like Savion Jones. Man, this is tough. Have not taken a receiver. So, yeah, I'm gonna go against what I literally just said. I think Savion Jones has enough. No, not fuck it. I was thinking of not Savion Jones. It's the purple got me. That's a TCU. Savion Williams. Is that right? Yeah. Jeez. That's embarrassing. Have at me, comments. Yeah, Savion Williams is the guy that I was thinking of. Jesus. Well, that simplifies things. I'm definitely taking Terrence Ferguson. I like Jared Ivey. I'd be considering him at different points if I hadn't taken Landon Jackson and Jihad Campbell. I think those guys, you have maybe a lot now, a lot of early draft capital expended on pass rush. So I'm going to take Terrence Ferguson as a guy who maybe steps in immediately and takes the Noah Fant role. I think it's possible AJ Barner gets the most snaps next year at tight end, regardless of if Noah Fant's on the roster or not, because he's a better blocker than Noah Fant. But I think that drafting a guy like Terrence Ferguson, and if you can get him at 137, you're stoked. Yeah, I think that would be a big win for the Seahawks to be able to go save the money, to have a guy with a comparable profile, a very athletic receiving profile from a tight end. Yeah, another A plus, baby. You can't tell me nothing now, commenters, because mock draft database has graded me strong. They're mostly grading on value, I think. Value and need, and not necessarily like scheme fit. So you guys can bitch about the scheme fit of some of these guys. We still don't have a receiver. I'm gonna see if he's available for pick 234. I'm gonna pull a guy if he's available in this. He's not on the PFF big board. That's how obscure of a guy this is. But a guy who I would have as a priority UDFA, but a guy that I would want the Seahawks to take a flyer on with their last pick if he's still available. Elijah Roberts is interesting. Again, Dante Thornton's interesting because of the athletic profile. A guy that I would certainly consider. Let's see. Are there any other running backs that I like? Brashard Smith. I think I'm probably going to take Brashard Smith here as a guy who he's a converted receiver, good athletic numbers. Gives the Seahawks something they don't really have, which is a guy who can truly run some routes as a receiver, as opposed to a guy that's just catching checkdowns and maybe doing something with them. Yeah, that's who I'm taking. But I have 175, and I don't think my suspicion is he still makes it to 175, but yeah, Noel Williams will probably be the pick. The Seahawks, I should have probably drafted a corner earlier. I got too excited to draft. I probably should have drafted. Yeah, see, that's where it starts to fall apart. It's like, if I could have gone Kenneth Grant, Landon Jackson, whatever corner was available, I guarantee you there was a good corner available at 52. And then Tate Ratledge, or, I mean, I guess in this case it would have, like, if I could go back and redo it again, I would have gone Kenneth Grant in the first. I would have gone Landon Jackson at 50, a corner at 52. Quinn Ewers at 82, Tate Ratledge at 92, and then Terrence Ferguson there probably. And so the guy that I'm taking out of that is Jihad Campbell, the first overall pick, which is frustrating because now I've already criticized my own first overall pick. We're going to take Noel Williams. Okay. So, and now here's where I'm going to take, I was going to be so mad if, I don't think he went, did he? Brashard Smith, baby. You are a Seattle Seahawk. And I get tied for my worst grade of this draft, and some might call it a reach. I don't think he was going to be available at 223, and a guy whose profile, I think, and a spot where I'm comfortable drafting a running back. I don't like drafting running backs early. That's a spot where it almost doesn't matter, and especially a guy that can catch the ball out of the backfield. We're making good time on this one. I gotta start filibustering a little bit just to really piss people off. All right, so now we're in a tough spot in the draft because it's certainly an area where I'm not like the most familiar. I like Clay Webb. Let's see the. Okay, my guy is still there. We're gonna find a guy. We're gonna find best player available here at. Or the best player that we want, I guess. That's the. Zeke Biggers is still there. I'm a big Zeke Biggers fan. We're taking him. He's a guy that can play a little bit of nose tackle. We're going to get bad grades on these last two. I'm warning you folks because Zeke Biggers is there's like four maybe guys who are like true nose tackle bodies in this draft. I think Kenneth Grant is one of them, and my argument is that Kenneth Grant is like a 2.5 down nose tackle, which is pretty rare. Jonathan Hankins, I said, is a 1.5 down nose tackle. That's significantly more common. I would say Zeke Biggers is like a 2 down nose tackle. He's also a guy that maybe doesn't make the roster, but it's the 7th round. All right, so my final guy, my hipster, obscure pick, guy that I want the Seahawks to get on their roster and not risk losing to other teams in undrafted free agency, is a guy with, I think, a 9.96 or 9.97 relative athletic score, one of the most athletic players in this draft, a guy who's long arms, tall, big body, fast, jumps high. Isaiah Nair out of Nebraska. Another C+. My last two picks are, go check him out. All the reports are route running needs a ton of work. But like natural hands, great athletic ability. I wonder about these guys playing at non-traditional passing schools. And let's take a look at our draft real quick while we have it up here. We get a B+ for Jihad Campbell, Ariante Ursary, who's a darling of mine, who I would love. I just hope ends up playing for the Seahawks. We get an A+ at 50. Landon Jackson, a guy that I like very much. Will Howard is who I am least enthusiastic about. Will Howard versus Quinn Ewers to me feels a little bit spiritually like Russell Wilson and Kirk Cousins did for me, where I liked both guys some, but I felt like Russ had limitations that were insurmountable. And I kind of think that about Will Howard too. However, he was probably the best guy available there, a guy that would be interesting to develop. Maybe I'm a coward for taking him and not just going 0 quarterbacks. Maybe if I had any balls, I would have taken Tate Ratledge there and moved on. Terrence Ferguson, I'm like neutral on that pick. Noel Williams, wish I would have taken a cornerback earlier. Brashard Smith, a darling. Zeke Biggers, a darling. Isaiah Nair, a darling of mine. Please,